What's up, you guys? It's Simon. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is yet another tutorial. I've been doing them a lot recently, but I don't know if I've been getting any better at them. So if I am, or if you have any tips or suggestions on how I can make these a little more concise, or if you like the longer tutorials and think that they're helpful, let me know, because obviously tutorials aren't something I do very often, so any feedback is super appreciated. Anyways, so tutorial we're doing today is actually a phase tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to say is really the #1 way to draw faces is to look at references. But if you're someone like me who kind of gets a little bit antsy and doesn't really like looking at reference photos too often, I tend to come up with a lot of my illustrations from, my imagination, which is why a lot of my illustrations end up looking either like kind of the same or just, the same sort of expression or something like that. It gets kind of frustrating, so I definitely would recommend looking at references, but if you can't, this is just how I sort of fiddle and make faces. So unlike most tutorials, I'm not going to say there's a specific way that I draw masculine and feminine faces, because really there is no like masculine versus feminine sort of look. Obviously there's a little bit of difference in bone structures, which is why, if you're interested in things like true crime and such, you can find, the sex of the victim based off of bone structure and things like that. However, when it comes to like looking at actual humans and people and things, your faces, aren't gonna look like, there's no defining characteristics to be like, this is feminine, this is masculine, so I'm not gonna say any of that. The first thing I'm gonna recommend you do, rather than basing it off of gender, is basing it off of shape. So your face can be shaped, a lot of different ways. Obviously there's the normal circle shape, there's a bit of like an oval shape, triangle, square, whatever you want to do. Just sort of try to pick a shape in mind. You can even do like a heart shape type of thing. Just try to figure out where you want to start. So me, 9 times out of 10, I tend to start with the circle, just because it's very easy for me to, kind of mold and shape and fit things how I want to. There's also like a lot of people tend to have just like, a round circular face, but circles are also the easiest thing to change into whatever you want. But if you have a more stylized style or something, obviously you can start with like a legit, genuine shape. But if you have a semi-realistic style like mine, keep a shape in mind, but you're not going to be following the exact lines. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, so first thing to do is determine your shape. Once you have your shape determined, so I'm going to start out with the circle, because like I said, that is what I do most of the time. You're going to start adding in features like the jawline, and again, this differs from person to person. You can look at references if you'd like to, but I tend to just draw. I'm going to make that bigger actually, so you guys can see once we start adding facial features in and things like that. So you start with your shape, whether that's your square, your rectangle, diamond, heart, whatever. You start with your shape, and then I draw a line right down the center of the face, kind of like you see in like all of those how to draw manga books. That's where I got that as a kid. So yeah, I just draw a line down the center to sort of help me place the symmetry of the thing. And also, one thing I do want to let you guys know, there are some people with perfectly symmetrical faces, but most people don't have a perfectly symmetrical face. A lot of us have very subtle differences. So say if you're drawing the other eye, the fabled other eye, it's horrible. It doesn't have to be perfectly like the other one, because in real life your eyes are not perfectly symmetrical. So anyway, this is just to help place symmetry of the facial features. And again, this is also something that differs. If you look at somebody like Steph Senyati, she's another YouTuber here on YouTube. But somebody like Steph, whose eyes are a little bit further apart than others. Yeah, everybody's facial structure is different, so you don't have to follow these rules, but this is just like the basic placement of where you can put them on the face, and then you can change it however you want to. So I just put this line down the center, and then I'll do the same thing on the side of the face, but all like kind of at like a slight curve almost. It's not a direct straight line down, even if I'm going to be doing something with like a stronger jawline, somebody that has maybe a more square jawline or sharp. I'm still not going to go directly straight down from the face. So I'm going to have a little bit of a curve, and I'm not going to go all the way down. And then I'm going to start at what would be the actual jaw. So I would consider this maybe like the side of the head or something like that. And then I'd start at the actual jaw, and you just kind of, you know, move in to the center line, and you can again shape the chin however you want. You can make it sharp, you can make it pointy, you can make it round, you could have a little butt chin, you could make, you know, Boy Chin Wonder from Fairly Odd Parents. It's whatever you want to do. Just again, look at references, or if you're if you're working from your imagination like I often am, just do whatever feels right. You have a pencil, you can use it to change things. You have an eraser, if you're working in pen, use that to your advantage. You know, if you don't like how you did it, maybe push yourself to draw something you wouldn't normally draw, whatever. So chin, I usually end up going for like a rounded chin, just because again, that's one of the easiest things to change. If I'm working on, you know, like a character or something that I don't quite know how I want to stylize yet, I always do like kind of rounder features so that I can then, you know, squeeze them, move them around, versus it's a lot harder if I made a really like sharp jawline and then I decide, you know, I want them to have a round face. You know, that's something that's a little bit more difficult to fix, especially if you draw very harshly. One tip I do want to say is definitely work on drawing very lightly. Even if you have like a lead that erases very well, I would recommend drawing lightly, just because you know, you're not going to be able to 100% erase every single thing that you do. I know I've talked about this pencil, how it erases really well, and that's true, but also if I draw really hard or if I layer, yes, it erases for the most part, but it also subtly stains the paper. So if you're not sure about a feature or something like that, or you're just sketching and you intend to erase, whether you're going to have line art or whatever reason, you know, sketch lightly so that you don't have to worry about something like that. So the next thing that I do, obviously, you can see I'm tidying up some of the shapes if I feel like one side looks a little bit different from the other. If I decide I don't like a certain shape, obviously I'm going to clean that up and tidy it. One thing I will absolutely suggest that you get your hands on, especially if you're somebody that works smaller, even if you're not, if you're just very detail oriented and picky and like to have clean sketches, this eraser. So I got this off Wish for like $5, but I've been seeing them at like Hobby Lobby and Michael's and other craftsy stores. So if you ever see an electrical eraser like this, get your hands on it immediately. So it comes with like a fatter nib. I've talked about this before. It comes with a fat nib, but it also comes with this little detail nib, which I really like. So for stuff like this, where I've decided I like this shape, but I need to erase some of my previous lines. Obviously you can do this with like a kneaded eraser or a regular eraser, but this just really helps to get like the fine details out that you don't want anymore, and then it makes the line really clean. And you don't have to worry about compromising your lines and redrawing the same thing a million times. It's very nice. I really like it. And it was cheap. So like, the fact of the matter on this eraser is that it was very good and I would recommend it. Anyway, so now that everything is cleaned up, I'm just, you know, sort of going in for like the top of the head shape. You don't really have to worry about a hairline right away. Often hairline is something that I think about even after I have created like the facial structure. But if it's something that you do want to include at the beginning, just figure out the top of the head. And also one thing to be careful, especially with the the angle that I am filming at. I realized more often than not when I use a bigger sketchbook, I often have a problem with distortion when I am just drawing from straight on. So take time to pick up your sketchbook, sort of look at it and see, make sure that it's not super stretched out. When I was filming my fun dip video that ultimately was lost, I realized partway through that her forehead was huge because it was at this angle. So as often as you can, pick up your sketchbook, take a look at it from straight on, make sure that it doesn't look super weird. So yeah, keep that in mind. And then, you know, if you want to add a hairline, just sort of, I tend to do something like this where I just start like bringing it in from the top. It's really hard to explain, but I just kind of bring it in from here and then think how would it land on the sides. But again, hairline isn't really something that I worry about too often, if at all, when making illustrations. But if it's something that you do like to keep in mind, now would be the time to place it. So the next thing I do, and again, this is something that you're going to see in all of the how to draw manga, anime, whatever, etc. books and tutorials and YouTube videos and stuff like that, is I take the center of the face and I section it into, I usually just do one part. Some will say like you can section it into 3 parts. Some will say to section it into like 6. I just do the one because that's too much effort. So I section it off. I try to make it, again, as clean and even as I possibly can, but it doesn't have to be too crazy even. This is just what I personally like to do. So I get this, and then the next thing that I do, I can't remember where I learned this tip, but I learned it from somewhere. Basically, when you're placing the eyes, your eyes are half a width away from the head, and then there's your eye, another eye in between your eye again, and then another half eye. And again, this, like Steph Sanyati is an example. There are people who exist who don't follow this exact line of proportions. Even you yourself probably will notice that maybe one of your eyes is like smaller than the other, or your eyes are wider apart than just one of your eyes, or one eye is higher than the other. I don't know. It's different for every person. I personally know that my left eye is a little bit, I have hooded eyelids, and my left eye has like, I think a bit more of a hood, or maybe it's my right eye. It's one of them. I don't know my directions. One of my eyes is more hooded than the other, so the other one looks bigger than the other. So yeah, you don't have to follow the exact proportions, but this is just how to place them so that you can change them. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that in this video. Hopefully it's not super repetitive. So yeah, you just take a half eye width, then your eye again, your eye again, and then another half eye. And you can adjust this if you notice that like maybe you made like, so this one I think looks a little bit bigger, so I just kind of keep drawing circles until I'm happy with the overall placement. And then what I like to do is I take this middle eye and I use that as the marker for the nose. I just go straight down, add another little circle for the nose. You can make it as big or as small as you want, or you can start with a different shape. Say maybe, I know a lot of people will start with a triangle. Kiwi bird I know starts with a triangle. Some people don't start with a shape at all. Like if you're gonna do a little anime style, you're more than likely just gonna like do that or something, you know, like in like classic animes and stuff like that. It's very simple. But yeah, if you're gonna start out with a shape, just put whatever shape you want as long as it follows this sort of thing. And again, you can change it. Anyway, so I usually start with a circle, obviously, because a lot of my noses, you guys know, I draw lots of round little button noses. I just think they're adorable, but sometimes I will stretch it out, maybe make it like a rhombus, or I'll do a triangle. I haven't really tried to do a square, but I probably could. I think that would be an interesting shape to start out with and make it sort of like really angular. But again, since this is how I usually draw faces, I'm just going with everything that I normally do, but you can use whatever shape you want. And then I kind of adjust it just like I do with the circle. And then I might notice sometimes I feel like, especially because of the whole, you know, stretching thing, that I made the chin too short, so I'll double check and I'll make sure, you know, looking at it from the perspective, this is kind of crooked. So yeah, it's a little bit slanted, a little bit crooked, so I'll just erase it. And it's okay to have to erase once you get to this point. Often this part will be straight more often than not. If you're one of those people who ends up accidentally, you know, going a little diagonal when you're doing illustrations and stuff, but usually the top of the head is going to be the straightest because it's just a circle that you started out with. So yeah, I will clean up and straighten things, and I might make the jaw a little bit longer since I noticed that I didn't leave too much room for the mouth. Yeah, so I really just like to show steps like this. Like normally I tell myself, you know, while I'm editing, like, you should cut this out, but like I kind of think that like it's good to show when I make mistakes, so that when you guys are following along and you're making mistakes, you're not having to go, oh, how are they doing this so perfectly? Like, why do I have to keep erasing? They're not erasing. So I think it's just kind of good to show, like, you know, you're gonna make a lot of mistakes when you're creating illustrations. Art is really hard. practice a lot. But anyway, so now that we've got this all sorted out, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the mouth. And the mouth I've been really struggling with lately, but mostly what I do is I will just draw the corners of the mouth. So if I'm going to draw a smile, I'm going to have it curved sort of upward, if that makes sense. And then I'm just going to sort of draw a random line. I literally draw like curves and stuff. I don't really think too much when I'm drawing the mouth. I try to keep in mind sort of the expression that I want for the character, or I just let the, you know, my hand take control of what it decides the expression should be. It's really hard to explain because, again, if I'm just going from my imagination and I'm not going for a specific vibe or anything, I really just let my hand do whatever. I don't think about it. I just try to relax and let it come through. So it's automatically decided, you know, we're going to have like a little bit of a sparky expression. There's a little bit, some teethies poking out, something like that. So, yeah, just try to, you know, make a little wave, or if you're somebody that likes like these lips that are like more like this, like they're a little bit more realistic, then, you know, obviously draw that shape. Look at references. But I don't really tend to do something like this very often. I always usually go with like the little loopy doopy mouth because I think it's really fun to draw. So there is that. And then I will get into the defining features, which are like the eyes, obviously actually drawing in the nose. Oh, one thing I forgot, ears. So ears, I usually just plop on the side of the head, and I don't really tend to think about where ears actually go on the head. So like some people are like, ears should just be here, but I tend to make ears pretty big. I don't know what possesses me to do it, but I tend to just, you know, put them wherever I would deem fit. If I think it looks a little weird, I might go in later. Sometimes I'll cover them up with hair, but generally I end up making them about 1/3 of the face, which obviously that's kind of close to real life, but also your ears are probably a little bit smaller than 1/3 of your face. But yeah, just put them wherever you think would kind of look a little bit interesting. Also try to keep the angle that you're working at in mind. So if you're drawing a side profile like this, obviously the ear is not going to look the exact same. So like it might be a little more curved this way. I don't really know how to do side profiles because I don't do them very often. But you know, you're not going to see the whole inside of the ear. I personally don't follow that too often because the way that I draw ears, you can almost see the inside, like the whole inside of the ear on the front, whereas in real life you'd probably only be seeing about like, you know, that much of the ear. I don't know. But I usually tend to do this like little weird pointy six shape every time I draw ears. Just because I think it's cute, but also like if you look at like cartoons and stuff like that, a lot of them, even from the front, will have an ear that looks something like that, you know? So just do whatever you like. But if you're somebody that likes realism or even like super semi-realism, so my semi-realism is a little bit more stylized than normal, obviously, but it's still not quite, in my opinion, like supreme anime. But if you like realism or semi-realism, definitely, you know, keep in mind proportions and perspective and things like that when you're drawing the ears. But I usually just draw them and slap on the 6. So for ears, I know this isn't technically a face part. Maybe, is it part of your face? I don't know. Your head, I guess. So I will draw like a side of the ear. It's usually like kind of, how do you describe this shape? Think of it like a butterfly wing, but like smoother. And then I'll take the side of the ear, connect it to the side of the head. So if this is the side of the head, I will connect it in like a diagonal, draw this little half circle type thing, and then I'll curve it out. And there you go. There's your little weird fishhook 6 shape or whatever. So that's what I usually do for ears like 9 times out of 10. Sometimes if I want to say add gauges, I will just make the earlobe fat and then add a circle under the bottom. So let's just do that for funsies for this little tutorial. You can make them bigger or smaller, obviously based on the size of gauge, because really when you get gauges, it doesn't really affect this top part of the ear. Obviously, it's just your earlobe, so you can stretch them as much as you want. People have some huge gauges sometimes. I respect them. Like, some people stretch their ears super, super huge, so really you can do whatever you want if you have a character with gauges. As long as it's not like maybe like that big, because I don't think people can have gauges that big. But like, you know, the size of this candle is doable. I've seen people with it. It's terrifyingly awesome. Terrifying in the sense that I think that that would hurt so bad, and I can't comprehend it. But again, I respect it. I think it's dope. So if you want to add gauges, just sort of draw another circle-y shape that's roughly a little bit bigger than the gauge that you want, and then draw a little one on the inside. So the next thing that I do is, again, defining features. So first thing are eyebrows. So big bushy eyebrows have been in since like at least 2016. So I just kind of draw this shape. And again, this doesn't matter, masculine, feminine, anybody can have any shape of eyebrow. Just kind of think like, do I want this character to have like super big eyebrows? Do I want them to have super thin eyebrows? You know, what's the general shape? So there's a lot of shapes for eyebrows too. There's, you know, the pencil, very skinny pencil brows from like the 1990s. You can have like super bushy brows, like bushy brows from Naruto. We stand Rock Lee. You could have like, you know, kind of bushy. And then it doesn't have to have this exact arc shape too. Maybe they might arc here. They might arc really strangely at the end or something like that. You know, everybody's face is different. Some people literally shave off their eyebrows and draw them on however they would like. I'm looking at you, TikTok e-girls. You guys are amazing. But yeah, so really, again, it's one of those things where it's like, it's whatever you want. It's your art. You're allowed to do whatever it is you want to do. And I think that's another thing that makes it kind of hard to make tutorials, because you can literally do whatever you want as long as you like the end result. So I'm going to go super bushy here just because I'm vibing. I feel like we're drawing maybe somebody who's like a little alternative, likes big, bushy, hairy eyebrows. So that's what we are gonna do. And again, I try to keep things symmetrical, but they don't have to be the exact same. You can change them however you'd like. But usually if I'm going with like a new character, unless I have like a specific thing in mind that's like, yes, I want this thing to be expressly different. Like say, for example, since we mentioned this guy's alternative, also another example, his eyebrows, a little bit of a different shape, which means it's a perfect time for me to decide I want him to have a slit in his eyebrow. So I'm going to add that in with a little eraser and, you know, do whatever I like there. So there's little slits in his eyebrows now. And the next thing I'm going to do is eyeballs. So eyeballs are another thing that I would strongly recommend looking at tutorials, well, yes, tutorials, but also reference images for, if you're, say, trying to draw somebody with a monolid, or somebody with like super huge eyes, or, you know, a hooded eyelid like mine. If you're looking for a specific type of thing, definitely do, you know, look for reference photos, but I more often than not will just kind of almost follow the line of the circle that I made to place the proportions, and I'll just kind of decide from there like where I want to differ the shape. So for this guy, I'm thinking kind of like an almond-ish sort of shape. But not quite, you know, maybe, almonds are I don't understand why people say almond shapes. Like this is how I see an almond, but this is how I see eyes. Like, they're more like sunflower seeds, I would say. So yeah, draw your little sunflower seed shape. Maybe I don't remember what sunflower seeds look like, but that's the first thing I thought of. So I draw that little shape and then I'll repeat it on the other side, or obviously, again, you can change it if that's something that you would like to do, but I want to not do that. So I'm going to repeat this shape on the other side. And sometimes I'll add in, like, if I notice when I'm sketching on one side, so like this one decided, you know, that I wanted to add like a tear duct and things like that. because again, your hand just naturally does things, and then your brain is like, I want to do this now, if that makes sense. Like, I won't necessarily intend to add a waterline, and then I will start sketching on one side or the other and realize, you know what, that looks cool. I want to incorporate that into the other one, so I bring that in there. This one's looking a little bit fatter, but that's fine. So next is the iris of the eye. That's something that's relatively the same for everybody. Maybe some irises might be like smaller than others, but they generally go in the same place and are, you know, the same size for the most part. So, you know, just draw a circle. Something that is important is sometimes when you're looking in certain directions, you're not going to see the entire iris. I see people, like sometimes when they're trying to draw like an eye looking up, for example, doing stuff like this, like trying to fit every single, you know, edge of the eye in there, like a perfect circle. And obviously this can happen, say if you're startled and you're looking upwards, obviously that will shrink both your pin and your iris a little bit, but you're more likely than not going to be able to see the entire circle of the eyeball. Even if you're looking like dead on, you can see that it's sort of touching the edges here a little bit, so you don't have to make a perfect circle for this. And in fact, I would recommend you not. You can draw a perfect circle, but don't try to, you know, fit that perfect circle within the confines of the eye that you've sketched. So usually, like if you're looking up, rather than seeing the whole iris, you're going to see something more like this, you know, where it's covered up, because again, it's rolling in the back of your head a little bit when you look like that. When you look up, it is covered by your eyelid, it's covered by the inside of your head, so it's not going to be a perfect circle. So yeah, and then the next thing you do is the pupil, and you know, there's not really any specific way to draw the pupil either. You can draw it in shapes. I know I'm guilty of doing that. I know for Rory, I don't know if I've shown her ever on this channel, but I did a girl with worm on a string earrings for my Etsy a while back. And thank you to the girl who purchased Rory. I hope you still like her. I miss her so much, but like I'm really glad that you liked her. So I think I just like drew the eye, you know, the way that I usually draw them. And then I put little heart pupils and star pupils because I just thought they were super cute. So yeah, you can do shapes, you can do circles, you can do whatever the heck you want. This is also something that's dependent on expression. So if you're startled, I believe that your pupils, what's the opposite of dilate? Is it dilate when they get tiny, or is it when they get big? Whatever. You get scared and your pupils get skinny. Or you know, they say that like if you're looking at something you love, then your pupils get bigger, things like that. So if you are looking to do a certain expression, keep that in mind and adjust your pupils accordingly, because that will help aid in both you know, making your expression more expressive, but also making it look more realistic. The next thing you can do is you can add eyelids. So if your character is monolidded, obviously you don't have to add eyelids. But if your character has like hooded eyes, you could do something like this, where you take the top and then you bring in that, you know, bring your eyelid sort of outward, I guess, if that makes sense. So rather than like doing what I normally do, which is something like this, I just kind of pop it onto the corner, or you can pop it onto the top here. It's really whatever you want. I usually tend to do that, but if I'm doing somebody that's like monolidded or has super hooded eyelids, I just kind of, you know, extend that eyelid outward from the top of the eye rather than from this layer, the eyelid. That's better. So there's that. The next thing I do is the nose. So actually I'm going to bring the nose up a little bit more. And then what I do is, again, I'll just follow sort of the outer edges of the shape that I created for the nose, for the outer edges of the nose. And then I'll use the sort of like, well, I guess there's not really lines. I'll take the center line sort of, and I'll make the bridge of the nose, but usually I start out with the nostrils. But if you're wondering where to place the nostrils, you can think about, you know, the center as being the bridge, and also what is this between your nostrils called? I don't know, but I'll kind of see there's the bottom here, and then I'll raise it up a little bit, and I'll draw like a sort of half oval shape similar to what I did for the edges of the lips. I'll just kind of repeat that again, and then I'll do it on the other side, or sometimes I might just take this and continue extending that and then bring it up and connect it to make the nose. So yeah, there is a quick mini nose tutorial, I suppose. Again, this is something that depends on your shape of your nose, whatever you're going to do, but generally you're going to follow whatever outer edges of the nose that you placed and then extend it however you'd like to, change the shape however you'd like to. You know, sometimes the nostrils might be pointed upwards like this and be really, you know, pointy. Sometimes they might be like really big and round. It's really dependent on the type of character that you're creating, or you know, my brain's not working, but it's dependent on, you know, what you have in mind for your character. You don't have to draw it specifically like this. So the final thing I do as far as the face goes, other than eyelashes, because we'll get to that in a second, is just the lips. I usually just take the shape I drew for the mouth and then I'll draw a little round bit under it, and there's a bottom lip. Sometimes I add a top lip, sometimes I don't. His face is looking a little wonky, so I think with a top lip that'd help him out a lot. Yeah, and sometimes I'll like color in this top lip and make it a little bit darker, because some people do have a top lip that's a little bit darker than their bottom lip, and I just think that's a really cool look. I do it a lot when I draw Simon from Lord of the Flies, and my character Nyrus. I don't post her too very often, but yeah, I'll draw like the top lip a little bit darker if I think that that suits the illustration. And then the last thing I do in regards to the face is eyelashes. So this is the same, whether it's, again, a masculine character or a feminine character, you just kind of go crazy. So I used to draw eyelashes where I would just take the, you know, the eye that I'd already created, and then at the corner I'd draw like 2 or 3 of these little triangular shapes, but I have since changed that, and now I just kind of go wherever. I usually tend to make a lot of, so if this is the bottom of the eye, I still do tend to make triangular strokes, but now they're a little bit straighter, kind of like a rectangle. I might curve some, I might make some thicker than others. I just kind of go a little crazy and let my hand do whatever it needs to do, because I think that that looks more natural than me trying to meticulously place these little triangles. And then I'll do the same for the top of the eyelid. I don't always draw top lashes. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. Often I'll do kind of like what Sims does, like EA, where they will just sort of draw like what looks sort of like eyeliner, but is just really fat, and call that top lashes sometimes, but sometimes I'll just sort of curve outward. I almost always make these center lashes here straight, and then I'll curve outwards, you know, accordingly. But I don't really do top lashes that often because I'm not great at them. But I do bottom lashes, you know, 99% of the time, just because I really think that bottom lashes kind of complete the illustration, in my opinion, like my own drawings that I do. You don't have to add any lashes if you don't want to. You know, a lot of animes and stuff obviously do not have lashes, so that's not something that you have to do, but if it is something that you're interested in, definitely go and do that. So there is our finished face, and again, if you didn't add the hairline before but now you're thinking that you kind of want to, you can still add it here. I just think that adding it ahead of time is a good thing to do. An idea for how you want to place your features, depending on how crazy you go with the hair, but you can add it in, you know, however, wherever you want. If you guys want a more in-depth tutorial for how I draw like individual features of the face, I will do my best. Hopefully they'll be a little bit more concise. Again, if you guys have any tips on how I can make these videos maybe a little easier for you guys to get through, please let me know. You guys seem to enjoy the longer tutorials, at least I've seen so far. The Copic tutorial was super long and you guys really liked that, so if you guys like the longer tutorials, let me know. If not, let me know how I can fix these. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment down below telling me what you liked about this video, perhaps. I also want to give give a big shout out to my patrons, Eyelids, Thompson, and Duran. Thank you guys so much for continuing to support me every single month. You guys mean the world to me. If you want to get a shout out alongside awesome people like Eyelids and Duran, be sure to check out the Patreon. It will be linked down in the description. You can get a ton of cool things on there like wallpapers, coloring pages, discounted commissions, discounted stuff from the Etsy shop. Patrons now get a 10% discount off of anything from the Etsy store. There's a post about it on there. So yeah, if any of that interests you, please go check out the Patreon. I'm going to be doing a revamp soon where I make everything a little closer to my style, a little bit nicer. I might be changing some of the rewards and tiers coming up very soon. But for the most part, that's what's available. Those things will continue to be available. I just might be adding new things or changing how I do those rewards in the future. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!